Test, test, test. Hey, Bob. Can you hear me? Sorry, I don't hear you. Can you hear me now, Bob?
Very clearly.
Oh, okay, I can hear you. How are you doing? 안녕하세요.
We're doing well. It's a busy Friday. Weather is kind of yucky,
Oh,
but looking forward to doing this event. How many do you have lined up?
around 15 to 20. I think we'll have some late joiners. Are you in the embassy today?
Yes, I am.
Great. I lived in Korea for a long time when I was younger, and I spent a lot of time down there at that embassy.
Yeah, they starting to do some renovations and remodeling on the streets and trying to beautify Seoul, if possible.
During the time that I lived there, this would have been the early 90s. It was just after the Olympics, and the Seoul was starting to spread into Gangnam area and all of that towards the south. And eventually I moved over to Gangnam, which is now kind of a hip area, but at that time it wasn't really. Yeah, it was fun. We had a great time. How long you've been there? How long?
It's my second time around. I was here 99, 2003, and then I'm glad you're here this time.
Great.
Finishing up this summer. Always interesting place, never dull.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hey, Dale.
Hello, Rob. Hello, Bob. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Batman. You're on the camera now.
So do you have to wear masks inside the embassy, even if you're by yourself?
I have staff with me coming in and out of this room.
Oh, right. Okay.
The ambassador's pretty strict about it, so
I bet.
follow on. But I hate them. I mean, I feel like I'm suffocating.
Yeah, of course.
They itch, you know.
Right. Yeah, I think we all hate them.
Is the I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now. I've met him a couple of times. The ambassador is famous for his mustache. Is he still there?
He's still there, but I mean, it's a new administration coming in, so probably departing in a few months.
I found that mustache issue is just ridiculous in my opinion. But
What issue was that, Rob? Just the fact you had one or what?
well, he's a Japanese American, and he grows a mustache that makes him reminiscent of some infamous Japanese generals. If you look at him, he looks like he came out of a
ninja movie.
Oh yeah, war movie or something. Nice looking man, but just so the Koreans were making a big deal about his mustache, and he looked too Japanese for them, and it was, in my opinion, just absolutely insane.
One of
Did he
those
look like
things.
Ojo or somebody or what?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. That's who they thought he looks like.
One of
Well,
those things that gets spun up on the Korean internet, and once it does,
yeah,
you
for
can't do
sure.
anything until it burns itself out.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't
So,
take much to excite the Koreans and the Chinese when it comes to the Japanese, you know,
right.
for a good reason. But
So, being on Hawaii time, in quotes, that means that we will start just a couple minutes after 10 a.m. Korea time, just to allow people to bleed in.
hey, Andrew,
Hello, how are you?
good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, guys.
Surfy Beach. I like it.
Yeah, so visited it
Yeah.
once last year.
If that doesn't bespeak Hawaii, I don't know what does.
It's the next best thing if you're several thousand miles away.
Right. I mean, you are in Hawaii now, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay.
near downtown Honolulu,
Yeah.
but it's always fun to travel a little bit during these Zoom calls.
Of course.
I had a call last week with some people in Japan, so they were from one major department store. So I found a picture of the front of their building and put it on there, and it was kind of funny.
Huh.
It's our first Zoom event. Pardon us as well.
Well, we should have a bunch of people dialing in here in just a minute. So
Yeah. So, how was it getting approval from U.S. government sources or authorities to use Zoom for this meeting, Bob?
We need to go back to our headquarters. You know, 5 days advance notice.
Okay. We've used Microsoft Teams in the past when we were communicating with U.S. government employees, but I found it to be far clunkier than Zoom, at least to manage a webinar. I don't know how your opinion is as a user, but it was difficult to run a webinar with it.
It's the hot thing now, so I don't know. I'm a technical guy. But we're using it more often just to keep the information flows on when posts and headquarters or have it. We'll see.
So Mi-young just joined. She's from the Korean consulate here in Honolulu.
Nice to meet you.
Aloha.
aloha.
안녕하십니까?
안녕하세요.
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 I didn't wear a tie today in honor of you guys.
No, good.
That's okay. Ties are anathema to Hawaii. So,
Mm.
hello, Frank. This is Frank Haas. For people who don't know, he's the chair of our Hawaii Pacific Export Council this year, and has been very helpful in putting the seminar together.
Mi-young, are we waiting for the consul general to join?
He's joining soon.
Okay, thank you. Here's Mr. Park is joining now.
Hello.
Oh, hello. 안녕하십니까?
안녕하십니까.
Be late.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much for spending some time with us today. We're going to
I'm
start
ready.
we'll start in just a couple minutes. We're waiting for
Okay, that's good.
some attendees. How long have you been in Hawaii, Mr. Park?
Actually, I just got here late October.
Oh,
So it's around 1.5 months.
oh, well, welcome.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
환영.
이렇게 사진을 찍어서
Actually, my last trip before the virus lockdown started was to Korea. I remember clearly I returned to Honolulu on March 3, and then everything sort of stopped.
Oh, it was just the beginning time. If it is,
Yeah, correct. So actually, I'm hoping to go to Korea soon after travel allows me to go. Maybe after a vaccine or something, we'll be able to go.
yes, we all hope that could be happen soon. Actually, why I got back to work here, I couldn't come from Tokyo to here directly. I
Oh,
went by way of LA
LA.
to here.
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot.
Mr. Hawk. So
Yes,
Deputy
ma'am.
Consul General will do a small prepared PowerPoint presentation. Could you allow him to share?
Sure. I'm going to make him a co-host. Okay, he's a
Thank you.
co-host. He should be able to. Oops. He disappeared. Make co-host.
Okay.
Deputy Secretary of State is at the embassy right now as we speak. Came over for bilateral. Always high-level interest on what's going on.
That's great.
Vegan.
Okay, it's 3:05 p.m. on Thursday in Honolulu, now 3:06, and it's 10:06 a.m. in Seoul. So I think we should begin. As a quick introduction, my name is Rob Hack from the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, and our mission as a nonprofit organization in Honolulu is to help all Hawaiian companies export. And export does not mean sending product to the mainland or island to island, but it means sending product to foreign countries. One of the key markets for Hawaii is Republic of Korea, South Korea. It's a key trading partner for us and also a source of tourism as more and more Korean citizens come to Hawaii every year for weddings and for vacation, for education at the University of Hawaii or any of our other great universities. So we're very happy to be having this Hawaii Korea-specific event today. With that, I'll turn it over to Dale Wright to say a few words, and then we can get to our speakers. Dale, please.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody for participating. Should be a very informative seminar. Korea is our 9th largest market, and so is very important, especially for Hawaiian exporters. We have a great panel today, including Acting Consul General for the Republic of Korea in Hawaii, Mr. Jung-Ho Park, Mr. Robert Dunn, Deputy Senior Commercial Officer for the Foreign Commercial Service in Seoul, Mr. Andrew Anderson Specker, who is the Director of the U.S. Agriculture Trade Office in Seoul, and a panel of 2 local businesses with experience in doing business in Korea. As Rob mentioned, this seminar is brought to you by the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, which is actually a nonprofit entity that is one of 61 such what we call DECs, District Export Councils, around the United States. Our main purpose is to provide consulting and educational support to exporting companies in Hawaii and the Pacific Islands. We are partners with the Hawaii State Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, offering training sessions and financial support to local companies. So for more information, our website is hawaiiexportsupport.com. And our next program will be on January 7th, which will be entitled Export University 101. Our website has more information on that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Acting Consul General, Mr. Jung-Ho Park. Mr. Park has 3 decades of experience as a diplomat, having served in consulates in Shanghai, Niigata, Sapporo, as well as the Korean Embassy in Pakistan, and as counselor for the Korean Embassy in Tokyo, Japan. It turns out, actually, Mr. Park and I share something in common, as we both went to Keio University in Tokyo. So, 안녕하십니까, Park 선생.
Aloha. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm delighted to join you today. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Mr. Vice Chair Dale Wright, Program Manager Rob Bahak, and the members of Hawaii Pacific Export Council for organizing this meaningful event that can contribute to the economic exchange between the Republic of Korea and the state of Hawaii. Sorry. Please allow me to share some current data about trade between Korea and the United States, as well as Hawaii. As of 2019, the United States was the 2nd largest partner of Korea. In the same year, Korea was the 6th largest trading partner of the US. Since the signing of the free trade agreement in 2012, the 2 countries saw the movement of goods and services continuously expanding, reaching the all-time high of $135 billion in 2019. Korea is one of the largest importers for Hawaii. Hawaii's export to Korea recorded $232 million in 2018. Key items were petroleum products, processed food, electronics, etc. Petroleum products and electronics are always on the top when it comes to trade between Korea and Hawaii. This reflects the geographical characteristics of Hawaii that connects the mainland US and Korea. It also demonstrates potential for growth in trade when tapping into the complementary and interdependent economic structure. In Hawaii, products such as Korean food, automobiles, electronics, as well as K-drama, K-pop, and K-beauty products are gaining popularity. Hawaii is a symbolic place in Korean history, as it is the first place that Korean immigrants to the US set foot on. Today, some 60,000 Korean Americans are living in Hawaii. Added with the Korean visitors to Hawaii that reached over 200,000 a year before COVID-19. The people-to-people exchange is vibrant. Now let me touch upon some characteristics of Korean markets. In the 2019 World Bank's Ease of Doing Business ranking, Korea was placed at 5th among 190 nations. Korea is considered to have a business-friendly environment as it could provide innovative ICT, skilled labor force, and comparative logistics. Korean markets has been the test bed for Asian expansion for many global businesses. Thanks to its advanced IT infrastructure, transparency, and accessibility. Its capital, Seoul, is a popular destination for tourists from China, Japan, and Southeast Asian countries. Many companies measure the potential for success in other Asian markets by entering Korean market first. Hawaii is highly regarded in Korea, and so are its products. Korean consumers are very fond of quality Hawaiian treats, such as Kona coffee, macadamia nuts, chocolates, and pineapples. High-end supplements like spirulina and noni juice are also selling well in Korea. In addition, more and more Koreans are learning ukulele and surfing, making the cultural product an attractive segment for business development. Therefore, I believe that there is a great potential for growth in trade between Korea and Hawaii. Let me share how the recent OECD Economic Outlook evaluated Korea's economy. It said effective measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 have limited the estimated fall in GDP to just over 1% in 2020, the smallest decline in the OECD. It also predicted that Korea's GDP will recover the pre-COVID level by next year. Korea's economic stability is one of the greatest attractions for foreign companies that are interested in entering an overseas market. Drawing my remarks to a close, I hope that the economic exchange between the Republic of Korea and Hawaii will continue to grow as our historic tie and friendship have been. I look forward to hearing the upcoming presentations and the panel discussions. Thank you.
Kamsahamnida, Mr. Park. Next, our speaker is Mr. Robert Dunn, who's Deputy Senior Commercial Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. In his capacity, Mr. Dunn oversees the day-to-day operations of the Foreign Commercial Service Mission in Seoul, which is a very active post that includes 5 American officers and 18 Korean staff. This is Bob's second tour in Seoul, and he also served as senior commercial officer in Belgrade, Serbia. Bob, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you, Dale. It's good to see you. I think the last time we met was on a cold night in Budapest.
Probably, that's probably true. There were lots of those.
Yeah. I'd like to congratulate the acting Consul General for his remarks. He's going to force us to revise our statistics when we get back to the office. So, this is great to be here. Great initiative, and wish you tremendous success. I sort of think sometimes being second tour here that Korea is kind of the Rodney Dangerfield of countries. They just don't get respect. Despite all the performance numbers we just discussed, it tends to be a kind of negative feeling about Korea. The 9th largest economy in the world, 3rd largest economy in East Asia. Next page. Sorry. No. Let me continue. I'm sorry. And such things as World Bank ease of doing business, 5th in the world. World Economic Forum Competitiveness Index 13th. Transparency rating 39 out of 198. And unemployment is low, but that obviously changes worldwide events last year. So I think this is also the 70th anniversary of the Korean War, and I think Korea's economic performance demonstrates truly the miracle on the Han is true, and there's no. Okay, next slide. Here's some basic, despite the good news of the economy, here's some causes for concern. Negative economic growth in 2020. An economy that's led by exports, and exports are losing, going to China and other countries. Offshoring, which is shipbuilding, autos, IT electronics, and the bifurcated economy, which strong chaebols conflict with lots of strong SMEs, low productivity. And one of the critical issues they have facing the years to come is aging society and low birth rates, similar to what Japan has gone through. This just shows the economic growth rate from days of tiger economy to current developed. Officially, Korea is officially a developed economy. Next slide.
Bob, can you get a little closer to your mic?
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Everybody knows that the chaebols and their domination of the economy, and it still continues. Big companies like Samsung, Hyundai, SK, LG, Lotte, among many top ones, and trying to get more balance out of the economy is one objective. Next, please. So what are they going to do to try to counter it? President Moon has been spending a lot of money on social welfare programs, among other things, but they're trying to pivot the economy and find next generation growth in exports. Heavy as industries decline, mainly due to Chinese competition. New engines of economic growth and exports potentially include such priority areas as healthcare, biotech, the full run of ICT technologies, 5G, leading the way. Defense and industry, aerospace, looking at offsets as a vehicle to increase their defense production, and general materials, smart technologies, etc. can be fun. So they're continuing to increase their R&D spending. You can see it in my daughter's school, whereas there's lots of Korean American engineers who are cherry-picked to come back and work in Korea. Next, please. I'll let you look at this if I don't want to get this too much to read, but basically, overall, trade is good. We have a surplus in services and about an $18 billion deficit, which is basically autos. We need to stop buying those beautiful Genesis and just buy American cars to reduce that deficit. Next, please. It just shows the balance another way. Okay, next. Top 10 U.S. exports to Korea. Energy is always probably going to be number one. LNG, chemicals, computers, machinery, food and agriculture. My colleague will speak on next. Next. Next, please. And here's some tentative numbers through 2020. We don't have the full numbers yet, of course, through September. And obviously, the decreases were expected. And so, as long as the virus is out there.
Webinar? So you can take my car tomorrow.
Sorry.
I left the tea in there.
Next, please.
Thank you.
Next, please. Next, please. The big trend now is, and we've had a lot of successes in attracting Korean foreign direct investment into the United States. It's a program called SUSA, Select USA, and it's a tremendous event, Dale. You may have attended in the past, but basically we have all 50 American states, territories, regional economies, what have you, gather in Washington for a 2 or 3 day summit where each can display what their advantages for FDI are. So it's Korea was number one 2 years ago when we brought a delegation. Ambassador Harris led the delegation, which was quite impressive. Last year, of course, was canceled. This year, they're looking at a partial virtual, partial real event. They just announced that there will be a Select USA coming up in June. So look forward to that. I mean, I'm sure, I believe Hawaii has participated in that, but I'm not positive. But the FDI is very important for American economy. FDI supports 57,500 jobs, $1.3 billion in investment in innovative R&D, and 22 to almost 23 billion in expanding U.S. exports. But it's been very successful. Regularly before the virus hit, we had a steady visits from governors and senators and regional development agencies coming to Korea trying to get partners. Next, please. And here's going to break down some of the FDI in the U.S., some of the projects, jobs created, and capital investment. And it's the main big companies that shape all, mostly because labor is the main issue in Korea. And so if you go to South Carolina, right to work states, excuse me, there's great benefits. And Korea is not becoming competitive enough within its own country, our own companies. Next. There's just another way of showing it. Okay, next. And here's one case study, March a couple years ago, SK Innovation Program for a new important battery facility. Our Secretary, Wilbur Ross, participated, the Governor of Georgia, on this groundbreaking, and this is just an introductory investment by SK. There's plenty more in the pipeline. Next. What are about American exporters? What are the best prospects? Here it's kind of an exhausting list, but just kind of highlights how many opportunities there are available for American companies who want to do business in Korea. Some of them are traditional, but new technologies are on the rise. So, next, please. there was some interest in cross-border e-commerce trade statistics. Almost $2 billion worth, and growing. Yeah, this is one of the advantages of the trade agreement. FTA enabled this sector to open up, and it's taking off quite rapidly. I know that living at home, we have a cable system, 80 TV channels, and it seems like 60 of them are shopping network bargains, from a condo to tissues. So it's really a significant market on the growth. So priority for us is to promote this sector. So I'm sure there's Hawaiian companies that, in cosmetics and those kinds of things that would have good opportunity in Korea. Next, please. And here's a narrative of what we just talked about. Dietary supplements, apparel, food products are the most popular source items from the US. But ever increasing competition from China and, in fact, the EU as well. Next. More specifically, what we can do, I think all of you are familiar with commerce, commercial service, but we have our standard portfolio of products and services to help American companies find the right partner, agent, distributor, from the Gold Key, counseling, market research, and advocacy, among others. And our domestic offices are very busy in routing companies our way, but we're never too busy to send somebody away. So there's good opportunities. If you don't have a agent or distributor, we can work together to find that for you. It's sort of a natural affinity, I think, between Hawaii and Koreans. And the Koreans enjoy American products and services. And I think we can discuss that in the future with Hawaiian firms. Next, please. That's just where we are. Next. Then next, and that wraps it up. That's our contact information. Okay. Happy to take any questions.
I think we'll wait for questions until the very end. After our other speakers get through. So thank you much, Bob. Appreciate it. Next, our speaker is Mr. Andrew Anderson Specker, who is currently director of the U.S. Agriculture Trade Office in Seoul. Prior to this post, he spent 6 years working for the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Foreign Ag Service in both Taiwan and Beijing, and has worked on ag-related issues regarding HPEC as well in Washington, D.C. So Andrew, leave it up to you.
Thank you very much. Wait 1 minute. All right, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet you all. ATO Seoul is part of USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service, and we help support U.S. exporters and producers to ship their products overseas and find overseas buyers. You can find information about the different services we provide at our website, atoseoul.com. Just very briefly on the COVID-19, since it impacts the food trends, and then we'll get into some of the food trends in a minute, and then I'll finish up talking about some of the trade flows between the U.S. and Korea. So this slide is a little bit dated, but the key point is that South Korea has done a relatively good job at containing the virus. Related to other countries, the impact has been small, but that doesn't mean it hasn't hurt. We've had impacts on job losses and increasing unemployment rates here in Korea. but it's unequal distribution, particularly younger workers have been hit. And you can see this in terms of household spending growth by income. Lower income tiers have seen expenditures drop, while expenditures by higher income tiers has held up. So you see somewhat of a divergence in the market, where there's a strong demand for value-based products, as well as strong demand for high-end and high-quality products. Of the different sectors, groceries has held up one of the best. On the top of the graph, you can see the different sectors and sales growth. Health and grocery have really been the only two sectors that have seen growth in the first part of the pandemic. And this trend has generally held up. So grocery is doing well. Everybody still has to eat. And with people not going to restaurants as much, they're coming in buying food in grocery stores. So with that, I'll talk about some of the current food trends. This is related to the pandemic, but it is happening before the pandemic started and will continue after it ends. We're seeing a strong move towards online retailers. As you can see, the sales growth by sector, online retailers have grown by far the most. And you've seen dip in other areas such as department stores. This trend is even more obvious when you look at food sales, where we see flat or dropping sales in other sectors, but strong growth in food-related online sales. During the COVID-19 outbreak this year through May, overall online shopping sales increased 16%, while online sales of food grew the fastest at 56%. As a result, the share of food products that are sold online increased from 19% at the end of last year to 26% at the end of May. We're seeing part of the trend towards selling online for food includes the restaurant sector. Consumers are reducing visits to restaurants and food service outlets due to COVID-19, and instead are switching to online restaurants and meal delivery services. The top 5 online restaurant meal delivery platforms in Korea reported that their deliveries increased sharply to 20 million deliveries in June. The picture over on the right is Bayman, which is one of the leaders in the sector here. Online retail is hyper-competitive in Korea, so retailers are trying to find ways to differentiate their services. Recent examples include 30-minute delivery service for small grocery purchases by HPEC, and a no-hassle free return policy for fresh agricultural products by We Make Price. South Korea's dense, high population density makes it easier for online retail to work efficiently and quickly. Online shopping presents a major threat to conventional retailers. There's a strong initiative among the conventional retailers, or a strong incentive amongst conventional retailers to restructure their business to cope with the threat. Latte Shopping Co., the leading conventional retail company in the market, has seen its sales and profits continue to decline since 2018 due to competition from online retailers. Latte Shopping announced earlier this year that it will close over 30% of its stores within the next 5 years. Instead, Latte announced that its new online shopping platform, Latte On, to restructure its existing retail business around online shopping. So we're seeing a lot of the conventional retailers move to invest in online retail. During COVID-19, Korean retailers realized that food is key to attracting consumers. As I noted, consumers are still coming in to buy grocery products, and that's a driver for sales and for retail visits. Retailers are upgrading their grocery food portfolio, particularly by introducing premium quality products to differentiate their offers from competitors. Some examples include one-day shelf life eggs introduced by Emart in May, pork meat only 3 days from slaughter launched by Latte Mart in May, the Golden Bricks program, offering top quality fruits with 20% higher bricks by Latte Mart, and fresh milk within 24 hours launched by Market Curly. Bricks is just a measurement of sugar content, which is something that retailers here pay attention to in the fruit sales. If you remember it earlier on, I noted that there's a big divergence in the market, both towards high-end and towards lower-end value-based sales. Retailers are making an extra effort to offer better value and lower prices to attract consumers who face serious economic challenges. For example, all hypermarket chains offered up to 50% price discounts during the special summer vacation sales promotion that they deployed in August. One trend we've seen that's been heightened by COVID, but has been going on before then and will likely continue afterwards, is a focus on healthy and functional foods. Koreans are very health conscious. The ratio of Korean adults who feel confident about their health has been on a sharp decline in recent years. COVID-19 has further increased consumer health concerns. A wide variety of foods that are known for health benefits continue to generate strong sales this year. A related trend is strong demand for dieting foods. Consumers were forced to reduce outdoor activities and exercise during COVID-19 outbreaks. Demands for products associated with weight loss diets and home fitness programs have surged as a result. For example, during the second wave of COVID-19 outbreaks that started in the week of August 15, retailers reported strong sales growth for products like fresh salads, almond beverages, and chicken breast meat. Spicy food is seen as a way to relieve stress. So as Koreans have become more busy, also as there's been stress related to the pandemic, spicy food sales have increased. As an example, CU, a leading convenience store chain, reported that their sales of hot spicy foods increased 24% during the second wave of the COVID-19 outbreak in August. As consumers reduce their trips to restaurants, they're looking for more ready-to-eat meals at home. And also this trend was going on beforehand as consumers were busy and there's an increase in two-person working families. Retailers and restaurants are making an extra effort to offer more home meal replacement prepared foods and takeout meals these days. Now I'll just briefly touch on a couple of agricultural trade statistics. Here we can see both overall Korean food imports and imports from the United States. As you can see, overall trade has held up fairly well, although there was a slight dip in 2020 year to date. However, there's been an increase in consumer-oriented foods, particularly from the United States. So again, those products oriented towards consumers and being consumed by families at home see strong demand. Here you can see Korea's top agricultural import suppliers. The United States is the top exporter to South Korea and accounts for roughly a quarter of the market. China, South America, and Southeast Asia. In terms of US export market, South Korea is our 5th largest export market for agricultural products. So that's behind NAFTA, China, and Japan. So it's definitely a valuable market, and one that we've seen stable demand. Here you can see a breakdown of the type of agricultural exports from the United States to Korea. You can see back a decade or two ago, there's strong demand in bulk commodities, basic commodities such as grains, oilseeds. This has now become more diverse, and now you see the brown bar consumer-oriented products accounting for the largest portion. And that's really led to the majority of the growth. So this is your meats, fruits, vegetables, processed products, anything you'd likely see in a grocery store when you go to visit. A couple breakdowns by products that may be of interest to Hawaii. The United States is the leading supplier of tree nuts to South Korea. This includes macadamia nuts, and South Korea is a major importer of macadamia nuts. Coffee as well. The United States is the top supplier of coffee to South Korea, followed closely by Colombia and Brazil. One of the large exporters of coffee to Korea is Starbucks, since it roasts its coffee in the United States and sends it to Korea for brewing. But you also have many other players, including demand for specialty coffee like Kona Coffee. Fruit juice also. Korea is a major importer of fruit juices, and the US is the top supplier, followed by Spain and Turkey. And chocolate. The United States is also the top supplier of chocolate to South Korea, followed by China and then the EU. So some key takeaways. The Korean food market remains solid despite COVID-19. Consumers look for value, quality, convenience, and new tastes in their food purchases. Online shopping is restructuring the retail industry. This has been supercharged by COVID-19, but it will likely continue afterwards. While some trends may expire when COVID-19 is contained, other trends are rooted in long-term socioeconomic shifts and will last for years. Consumer-oriented products continue to generate new export opportunities. So many of the products Hawaii has strengthened are ones that have high potential in South Korea. So with that, thank you for listening to my presentation. Again, please check us out at atoseoul.com. We provide a number of different services to exporters. And if you go to the US Exporter Support tab, you can find information on the markets, on regulations, and some of the services and help we can provide to US exporters.
Great, Andrew. Thank you. That was great information. Really appreciate it. Now let's have a brief discussion with Mr. Larry McCarthy, who's president of Black Sand Publishing, and our own Rob Hack, who is president of the Asia Sales Manager. Both have good experience in Korea, so I'm interested to hear what their experiences have been and if they have any tips for doing business in Korea. Go ahead, Rob.
Let me start by explaining my background in Korea. That the first job I got out of undergraduate school was in Korea, and I was sent there by the Japanese company that had hired me, and I was 21, alone, and selling Japanese semiconductor capital equipment to some companies that don't even exist anymore in Korea. But I really cut my teeth on international business in Korea and lived there for several years, and then have since maintained a branch office there in throughout my career. So I've been traveling to Korea many times per year for almost 30 years now. And I feel like I have my fingers on the pulse of what's going on in Korea, particularly in technology, but secondarily in what Hawaii companies have to offer to Korea, because I've been working on that for the past, say, 8 years. And my experience with the Hawaii companies is that I would reiterate what Andrew had offered, that Korean consumers are highly interested in quality food products, not just food, but any type of product that they're going to import from Hawaii. It should be extremely high quality, and they're expecting natural ingredients and the product to be made in Hawaii with the sunshine and clean water, clean soil, what have you. So the companies that I've met in Hawaii that I think could do extremely well in Korea are soap, and lotion, cosmetic type of companies. Some food companies, I think, could do really well, but it has to be very natural, almost organic type of products. I see that all over Korea. The consumer is extremely interested in freshness. And so long shelf life food products are not necessarily the type of product that we should be targeting to export to Korea. But as Andrew had pointed out, there's the E-Mart and other convenience stores like Family Mart, what have you. They are focused on hyper fresh products, and they'll throw them out at the end of the day if they're not sold. And you saw that there was one E-Mart that has eggs that are only that day, and if they're not used that day, then they're sold off to somebody who will cook them or what have you. So I would just reiterate that it's the commercial service is a great jumping off point. If I were a Hawaii company looking to export product there, I would try to contact Bob or people in his group or Andrew and learn as much as you can about the Korean market. It's, in my opinion, the most straightforward market in Asia to enter into. You will deal with, generally speaking, a lot of English, but if you can learn the Korean and some Korean, or find a local agent who can help you, it'll be much easier for you. But it's certainly a much easier market for a Hawaii company to attack than say Japan or China. I think that there's quite a natural affinity between Hawaii and Korea, or just the US and Korea in general, that makes it, in my opinion, the easiest market in Asia to start off in. I would leave it at that and ask Larry his opinion, and then we can certainly take questions later.
Sure. Larry Mccarthy, president of Black Sand Publishing. We're a Hawaii fine art distributor. We publish art prints, and merchandise, and sell that through Hawaii, through the US, and to Japan, and more recently, Korea. Our experience is new. We started approaching Korea in 2019 as a small business, and my background with Korea is very short, unlike Rob's. That's it. The next question is, how did I have to climb the ladder and learn about doing business in another country? So we looked at two things. We had a prospective partner in Korea, another small business. And of course, we were very concerned about reliability and trust. And so we had to find resources as a local business here to qualify our partner in Korea. We leaned heavily on both the state of Hawaii and the US Commerce Department. Here in Hawaii, commerce folks such as John Holmes were very helpful to talk to us and also connect us with the embassy people and the commerce people in Korea, including Mr. Dunn and his staff, who I had the chance to visit in 2019 at the embassy and have a discussion, because our market, which is fine art, is a very niche, narrow market, and we really had to try to learn quickly in a matter of 1 or 2 months the best way to approach that particular market. It's not a general commodity market all year long, like maybe food or clothing. We also leaned on the Commerce Department and the state of Hawaii, who operates Hawaii Tourism Authority, who in turn has agents in Korea and other countries. That would be HTK, or Hawaii Tourism Korea, whose agents in Korea helped us with projects. And together with people here in Hawaii, I might mention one of the attendees, Bill Oberlin, was a very kind and experienced person to provide some advice and mentoring to small business on how to deal with people, what to look for, a lot of business questions that they just don't teach you in school, and could be hard knocks if you don't learn it quickly. In the end, spring of 2019, we established these relationships. Then in the summer of 2019, we were able to pull together a partnership and hold the first annual Aloha Festival in Seoul, which was a festival at the iPark Mall. in combination with, of course, the IPARC folks and HTK helping to sponsor it, and our partner there to show Hawaii art and some other products. Hawaii festivals are a very popular way to encourage exporting, where these festivals are held in other countries to promote music, food, clothing, art, and products like that to these other countries. And so we had the first annual festival, and that was good. Learned a lot and had some good feedback. Unfortunately, the second annual show in 2020 did not happen. So hopefully 2021 will continue that. And also keep expanding our commercial businesses, which is distribution of product into Korea with a partner, and reaching out to more parts of the country, not just the city of Seoul, but other areas. As you can see, the sign behind me says Surfy Beach. This is a popular surf area on the east coast of Korea that we visited in 2019, and had a small shop set up to sell product, because a lot of Hawaii art is based on themes such as surfing, waves, ocean. Very popular for memorabilia when tourists come to Hawaii. Of course, they're attracted to the ocean and they want to bring something back home. So we want to spread a little bit of aloha to Korea through a partnership, because we do not have the strong in-country knowledge and experience. And we absolutely have had to lean on people to guide us and mentor us from the Commerce Department, State of Hawaii, and other organizations. And 2020 has been kind of a wash, so we are looking to plan 2021 with some festivals, some trips over there, and slowly continuing to promote a bit of Hawaii culture, which is art, into Korea with a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck. Thank you.
That's great. So Larry or Rob, do you want to handle any questions we might have?
I just want to make a comment.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You have a national treasure in Bill Oberlin sitting out there. He's the best of the best. He's
Oh,
trying to
absolutely.
retire, and he's a great resource for you guys.
I should have added, this is Rob, I should have added that a great resource is the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea. I've been a member with them on and off for literally 30 years, and they can provide a great deal of advice to a small Hawaii company trying to come into the Korean market. To be a non-resident member is really inexpensive, and
Yeah.
it's worth it.
Yeah, they're riding very high right now.
Are there any questions?
If I may, maybe for Council General Park or Bob or whoever, but so what are the current COVID restrictions on entering Korea? Is it pretty much travel shut down to Korea right now? That's one thing. And the other thing is, provided maybe we'll have a vaccine next year, but meantime, how do companies go about establishing, let's say, agent distributorship agreements when they can't really go to Korea right now? But anyway, first of all, maybe Mr. Park can talk about the restrictions.
I'd let my colleague Haley Young give you a quick overview of what's going on with that
Okay.
issue.
I'm sorry, I'm not on camera. Hear me? Okay. You do have a 14-day quarantine here in Korea. A 14-day quarantine when you arrive to Korea. But prior to that, you are required to test yourself for COVID positivity. If you are positive, you are not allowed to come into the country. You can't even get on the plane. But if you are negative, you come into Korea, and then you may have to come in and be tested again. I will then defer to Consul General Hawk. Has he got anything else to add about traveling to Korea?
Yes, as you mentioned, it's really a difficult time, I think.
Yes.
How to connect because of this quarantine matters. So during this difficult time, trying to use online maximally. And as you mentioned, there are several organization which is helping business using that organization also, or the companies who already stays in Korea. So, and as you mentioned, our people is very much careful, COVID-19. So very, strict quarantine measure is necessary for us. So that makes it more difficult to do it. But as I mentioned, try to the things we can use maximally. That will help. Thank you.
And does anybody know, I mean, can Korean travelers come to Hawaii now? I know that Trans-Pacific tourism has been opened up somewhat here, but I don't know, does the Korean government allow their people to, travel overseas, or what is the status there?
Oh, yes, our Korean government, now we are, trying to, we already notified to the agencies or hospitals who are during that testing measure. Hawaiian government is willing to have Korean tourists. So as you understand now, mainland US and Japan and Canada, they can come after they test, after they test it without no problem. But we also proceeding that kind of measure to the organizational, still it is processing on it. So I think at time, it could be successfully notified to the people who would like to come to Hawaii.
So if I may add about the business travel between Korea and Hawaii, as Acting Consul General Park has mentioned that the Republic of Korea is very serious about COVID restrictions, and everyone is mandated to go through 14-day quarantine once they arrive in Korea. But if you are traveling to Korea for essential business purposes, then you can get an exemption. And I'll share the link on here somehow, but you can apply for the business COVID quarantine exemption through the consulate. So if somebody in Hawaii is planning to visit Korea for essential business purposes, that they can apply for the quarantine exemption.
So what is considered essential business?
Usually it's defense contractors.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
just general.
Going.
So just general business people going there, that wouldn't apply to them.
Yeah. Unlikely.
Well, as a follow-up then, Bob, I mean, how are you doing right now some of the FCS services, agent distributorship service and things like that, since people can't go there? Are you facilitating somehow like online connections? I mean, Asian markets and cultures are so person-to-person oriented. So I just wonder how that's working out these days.
It hit hard because, even the commercial service, how we're dependent on delegations and visitors and groups, things like that. It went from, the usual manic, no vacancies to, Maytag repairmen sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. And so now we're starting to limp back out of it. And again, webinars and kind of virtual events. Ambassador has several virtual events a day. I don't know if that's the new, and with the vaccine, it's going to go back to the old days. But, I know for some posts it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
There was a time for several months this year when the Gold Key service was offered more or less free of charge. Is that still going on?
Gone. That was about a month ago, maybe.
So in other words, you don't offer service anymore, or?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is Frank. I have a question for Bob. Korea, I believe, is part of the new Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and the U.S. is not. Is that going to affect trade between the U.S. and Korea?
We already have a FTA with Chorus, and that's done well. I don't know about not being part of that group you mentioned. I'm not familiar with them. I haven't followed that. I think our activities are through the FTA. Let me clarify that for you. Need be.
Korea already has a free trade agreement with the United States.
Yeah, we can't hear her, unfortunately.
Okay. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we've been dealing through the Chorus FTA is our mechanism on trade and related activities and issues with Korea. There's actually a lack of clarity on what the Hawaiian policy is as far as coming in. A lot of people would like to fly in, get off in Honolulu, spend a couple of days, and then get back on a plane and go to wherever. And I think Hawaii has really clamped down on cases, and I think there's still a perception, maybe right, maybe wrong, but it hasn't been conducive to travel and tourism.
Yeah. Well, I'm also wondering about trade shows, like for instance, especially in the food and agriculture sector. I know there's virtual trade shows going on and whatever. I'm not sure how you can do that with food and agriculture, but I don't know, Andrew, if you maybe could say something about that.
So a number of the trade shows this year have been canceled. Our big one is the Seoul Food and Hotel Show. That's now been rescheduled for June, early June of next year. But that's a good trade show, and I encourage people to look at that and consider participating. They can reach out to their office if they're interested. We have been able to do some trade shows. The problem is we often have to do it without the exporters being present there because of the travel restrictions. So what we do is if companies have an import partner or in Korea, or they're working with an association here in Korea, we have that organization help represent them here on the ground. We can also help some ourselves in representing companies and pass out information. So we can still do some things, but it's more challenging and limited.
What happened to Gulf Food? I'm sorry.
Gulf Food, I need to have to go back and double check with that office. We have been moving somewhat to virtual. There's still some in-person trade shows here, and we hope there'll be more next year, but it's been challenging. Quickly for people who are, let me just quickly add that on the topic of what trade services are available. We do offer a buyer alert service. We have a contact list of some 3,000 importers and trade partners here. So if you go onto our website and submit an application under there, go to exporter assistance, you'll find the buyer alert service. We can help notify traders here of your product offering and your interest in exporting to Korea.
This is Rob. Two quick comments. One, I know that the Hawaii State Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, or DBET, has interest in Gulf food, and that they're planning on having a Hawaii pavilion at the next Gulf Food Expo.
Yeah, I served in
I don't know
Dubai
that-
for 3 years. That's a tremendous show.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, there's a question that came in. I'll read it out. Question for any of today's speakers, are any of you familiar with any kind of recurring or frequently seen regulatory hurdles that Korea presents to US-based exporters, especially as pertains to the food or personal care product sectors? Are there any pitfalls or gotchas that tend to arise for US exporters there? And a follow-on to that is, are there any shortcomings about chorus from a US perspective?
So this is Andrew again. On regulations, there's quite a few areas to watch out for. I again refer you to our website, atoseoul.com. Under there's a regulatory section, and also our detailed FAIRS, FAIRS report that covers regulatory issues. And so that's a good starting point to review it. Your key partner on that should be your importer. And you need to have a good importer, and they can help you navigate the different rules. On agriculture, always one thing to watch out for is maximum residue limits, MRLs. Make sure that there's residue limits set in Korea for any compounds that you're using in your production. And then labeling is another big headache. So make sure you watch out for labeling issues and that you comply with the Korean labeling rules. Those are probably the two top line issues to watch.
Andrew, I have another question. Hawaii manufactures lots of creams and lotions and soaps and sunscreens and these kinds of products that tend to be quite natural. When sending those products to Japan, they're required for testing locally in Japan because they're considered a cosmetic, which Japan is perhaps unique in the world at regulating the cosmetics that way. I'm curious about Korea's regulation. Do you have any idea about that?
That would actually be for my colleagues over in commerce. So Robert, do you want to take that?
Take it as an action item. We have a specialist who covers the sector very well, and Miss Beck. I don't know the details, but there's always going to be these issues with Korean where there's a slight variation of the specification or some sort of standard that we try to leverage for market advantage.
Through our STEP program, I'm sure you've heard of the STEP program before. It's a state trade expansion program that comes from SBA in Washington. Yes. Hawaii gets some money for that every year, and it's rebranded here locally as High Step. And High Step will pay for some of the testing costs to get a product available for sale in a foreign market. And that's why I'm just curious if that's a major concern for the Korean market, like it is for Japan. Anyway, it would be good to have the contact information from Miss Beck later, and we can ask her directly.
Sure, we'll send it to you shortly.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Mr. Park, how about the vaccine? Are you going to get that in Korea early next year, or do you know what the time frame is?
Oh, yes. Our government is trying to get the vaccine as fast as we could. So I think during the late of next year, we could get vaccine, but still it's going on. So we are just watching and the contacting with the vaccine companies. We are trying as far as we could at this moment. Our people's also very much eagerly.
Of course.
Medical. We are not to be behind of that situation.
Yes.
Sorry, Dale, one quick question came in about packaging. Does that need to be in Korean language for grocery and for B2B? And what about e-commerce selling from Hawaii to Korea? What's the packaging and labeling requirements there?
So this is Andrew regarding the food products. There has to be a Korean label on it. You can have English on the packaging, but you have to have an affix a Korean label, and you can work with your importer to work on the details on that. There are specific requirements on the labeling. Some of that's in our reports on our website, but again, it's your import partner is going to be an important source of information on specifics there. I'm less familiar on e-commerce, direct to consumer. I'm not sure. There may be some. We can look into that if you want.
I think Byron had another question about who the e-commerce players are in Korea. I don't know, Bob, if you could address that.
Regarding that, actually, I'm not sure about according to the commodity or according to the parts of it. It could be different, but mainly is the Minister of Industry and Commerce in Korea, I think. That ministry will be in charge of it.
Yeah, so anyway, regarding e-commerce, I mean, is Amazon big in Korea and, you know, some of these other sites?
I think it varies by the product. Amazon, I haven't seen as much. There's a lot of Korean players that are very active.
Okay.
But if you're looking for partners, usually the easiest way to get into one of those is first through a middleman importer, and then they would supply it to the big players. If the big players purchase it themselves, they're probably looking pretty high volume for some sort of stable demand product. But usually the importers would be your point of contact. But if there's specific questions on the ones for food, then you can reach out to our office and we can try to get you a list.
Yeah.
We have started to do some promotions with retail or online retailers. Before we hadn't done much more B2B, but we're starting to expand more and testing out those waters ourselves for our office.
Well, maybe either Bob or Andrew, you could send us a list of some of the major e-commerce players in Korea so that we can share those with our companies.
Will do.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Can you quickly comment on that? We have a small amount of experience where our distributor took some of our products with a Korean platform called Naver, N-A-V-E-R, which I believe is a pretty sizable player in Korea.
Okay. Sounds like you're having a party there, Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah, Naver is the major e-commerce company in Korea. They provide, if you've dealt with Japan uses a Line for instant messaging. Line is actually a Naver company. and they're a major internet player in Korea. So that's the primary e-commerce platform, but there would be others for foods or specialty products, beauty products, and what have you.
Yeah. Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, we can end our session now. Really thank everybody for participating. It's been very informative and helpful. And before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to an old friend of mine, Janice Cooper, who I see is online. We used to work together with the state of California many years ago, so I wanted to say hi to her. Anyway, if there's no other comments, we can end the
Thanks for
session.
the opportunity. Look forward to
Great.
increasing
Thank
our
you
work
so much, everybody.
collaboration.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
Thank you. Key now is the follow-up.
Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Aloha.
I can't.